Okay, I'm going to get started this morning by welcoming everyone. Welcome to Wat Tung. Nice to see everyone here. Welcome to everyone who's joining us online as well. Today is the first day of a 7-month program that's referred to as the Group Learning Program. This is a program where each Sunday and Wednesday I gradually walk students through, helping them to develop a foundation in the path to enlightenment and understanding how to move the mind to this enlightened mental state. Now, I realize some of you guys might not have realized that. You might just be popping in for some meditation and some talks about the teachings of the Buddha. Well, you're in the right place. It's just that we each Sunday conduct classes where I'm helping you to be able to understand the path to enlightenment. And today happens to be the first day of this program, where I've taught this many, many times online and here at the temple, where each 7 months, I'm repeating this program over and over and over. So I'd like to welcome all of you guys here at the temple and anybody who's joining online. As you're learning in this program, you'll actually be able to move your mind closer and closer to this enlightened mental state. I'm going to talk a bit about what enlightenment is and the ins and outs of this program. And I'm even going to give you an introduction to the teachings of the Buddha so that you can understand what the teachings of the Buddha are and what they are not. But the way that we start each one of our classes is we start with some meditation. So I'm going to start you off with some meditation first, and then we'll move into our class today, helping you to understand the ins and outs of this program, as well as what are the teachings of the Buddha and what they are not. So again, welcome to all of you here. Welcome to everyone who's joining online, or even those of you guys that are maybe watching this on the replay or the recording. If you'd like to join us for the meditation, the way that I do this is I start with some chanting in order to ease the mind into meditation. And you guys are welcome to join along in this chanting if you like. We actually have the chants over there on a laminated sheet on the cabinet where you're welcome to chant along during the chanting if you like. And for those of you guys online, these chanting sheets are on our website by going to buddhadailywisdom.com. You click on free books, and then you scroll down towards the bottom and you'll see the daily chanting sheet there. The chants that we're using is helping to ease the mind into meditation and get more benefit out of the meditation itself. During the lifetime of the Buddha, he used chanting as a way to help his students commit the teachings to memory, where every 2 weeks his students would come together and they would recite his teachings orally, because everything that he taught was oral. So you can see from the origins of chanting that there isn't anything mystical or magical here with this chanting. It's not a rite, ritual, ceremony, worship, or prayer, or anything like that. The chanting nowadays is just to ease the mind into meditation and get more benefit out of the meditation itself. In terms of the teachings of the Buddha, there are no rites, rituals, ceremonies, worship, or prayer. His teachings aren't about belief. You're going to learn about that today as I share that with you. You might have been exposed to those kinds of things in various venues where people are doing rites, rituals, ceremonies, worship, or prayer. But if they're doing those things connected to the teachings of the Buddha, those aren't the teachings of the Buddha. Those are gross misunderstandings that people are having. So I'll help you guys to be able to understand what the teachings of the Buddha are and they are not. And as we're chanting, it's just important to keep in mind that this isn't any kind of rite, ritual, ceremony, worship, or prayer. That during his lifetime, it was solely used as a learning tool, as a learning device to be able to help students commit the teachings to memory. They would recite them orally every 2 weeks. And then in terms of the translations that you'll see on the daily chanting sheet, if you read the English translations, you're going to see a lot of appreciation, gratitude, and respect for the Buddha. And because of this, I don't think the Buddha even created these chants. They were probably created by his students either during his life or after his death, because the Buddha wouldn't walk around and say, here, chant these chants to me out of respect for me, because this would be ego or arrogance if someone chose to do this. And the Buddha wouldn't have gone around and, instructed people to chant things to him. But if you learn from a teacher how to move from anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy, to this enlightened mental state where the mind's completely peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy, and this teacher didn't want anything from you or expect anything from you, you might actually have a lot of appreciation, gratitude, and respect for that person too. The Buddha was just teaching out of the kindness of his heart to be able to help people to understand this path to this peace and joy that one can experience. So I suspect his students had an enormous amount of gratitude and appreciation and respect for him, because even today we have enormous amounts of appreciation, gratitude, and respect for him, having shared his teachings in a way that all of us can now learn and practice those to be able to experience that same mental state that he experienced. So I think that these chants actually came from his students. So after the chanting, I'm going to move into some guidance where I'm going to be guiding you during the meditation, or I'm essentially instructing you and teaching you how to meditate while we're actually meditating. Now, as part of this group learning program, on Wednesdays, I will be guiding students in meditation and giving you more instruction on meditation. But today, I'm just going to guide you in the meditation while we're actually doing it. Because on Sundays, we go chapter by chapter in this book, helping students to be able to understand the path to enlightenment. And then on Wednesdays, I instruct students on meditation. In the combination of Sunday and Wednesday, students gain an understanding of the path to enlightenment. But today, I'm just going to give you some instruction while we're actually meditating so you can learn how to meditate while we're actually meditating. Then there's going to be a period of time of quietness where we're all meditating. Everyone here at the temple and anybody who's joining online, we'll just all be meditating together at the same time. Now, during this period of time of quietness, I'm sure you're going to hear occasional sounds. Whether you're here at the temple or you're at home, you might hear occasional sounds during your meditation. If you're in meditation with a craving for permanent silence, when you hear a sound, you'll cause your mind to be annoyed or frustrated. So here at the temple, you might hear cars going by, you might hear dogs barking or birds chirping, here someone might cough or sneeze. This is normal. You're not going to be able to be in an environment where it's permanently quiet. So if you understand that the world around you is constantly changing and it is impermanent, you can be at ease when you hear those sounds. You can understand that this is the world working exactly the way it was intended to work, which is things are going to arise, change, and fade away, including sounds. So you're not going to be able to be in an environment where it's permanently quiet while you're meditating. But the goal would be that you can meditate whether it's quiet or whether there's sounds, and your mind is undisturbed by that. That's ultimately what you're working towards on the path to enlightenment, is that your mind is completely peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. This is a permanent mental state that you can experience in this life. After that period of time of quietness, we're going to come out of the meditation with some more chanting. And then that's where I'll start today's class, helping you guys to understand some teachings of the Buddha and helping you to understand this program and what it's all about. Because for those of you guys that are maybe traveling here in Chiang Mai, you can learn here at the temple, but you can also learn at home too, because I live stream all of our classes and they're even recorded as well. So if you'd like to join for meditation, there's 4 positions that the Buddha taught, and you might learn these at different times in your journey to enlightenment. Oftentimes people are learning in the seated position, so I'll give you guidance on this, but there are the seated position, the lying, there's standing, and then there's walking. And you would learn these different positions at different times as part of your journey to enlightenment. It's kind of like having a tool belt and using these different tools at different times in your journey to enlightenment. But since people are typically starting off in the seated position, I'll start you off with that. But then as part of this program and all the other courses and retreats that I share, I teach you these other positions as well. But the seated position is kind of like a primary position, kind of like a go-to position for meditation. So that's where people are typically first learning. You could be sitting on the floor or in a chair. Maybe if you're at home, you're in a bench or a sofa or in a wheelchair. You can sit however you like. There's not just one fixed way to actually sit. But if you're on the floor, you might have some cushions under your rear. This will kind of help soften your seat a bit. And if you're going to bring your legs together in the cross-leg position, you might choose to do that just lightly. Whereas if they're real tight, this can impede the circulation in the lower body and cause pain. Some people like to put their legs off the mat, and this helps get the hips up in the air, lessening the angle at the hips, the knees, and the ankles, again, allowing the circulation to flow. But there isn't just one way to do this. What I'm sharing with you are recommendations or suggestions. You can find whatever's comfortable for you. In terms of your hands and arms, the Buddha put his right hand over his left and he put his thumbs together, placing this in his lap. If this is comfortable for you, you could use it. But it's not about everyone doing it exactly the same way. This is not possible. All of us have different bodies and we're going to find different things to be comfortable. So some people like to put their palms on their thighs or their knees. Some people put their palms up. Some people rest their hands comfortably in the lap. So you can put your hands and arms wherever you like. In terms of anybody who might be sitting in a chair or on a bench or a sofa or a wheelchair, same thing. You can also sit however you like. Some people like to put their feet flat on the floor or lightly cross at the ankles, but you can see me sitting in a chair here with my legs crossed. So this is an option for you as well. In terms of your upper body, you would like to have your sternum up and your shoulders back. This will keep your mind attentive and alert during the meditation. Whereas if you were slouched like this, the mind would have a tendency to be dull or lethargic. But if you were real rigid with the upper body, your mind could be overactive or uptight. This is a dedicated, active, purposeful training session where you're eliminating certain unwholesome qualities from the mind and you're cultivating certain wholesome qualities in the mind. So you'd like the mind to be attentive and alert while you're meditating. So having your sternum up and your shoulders back will help keep the mind attentive and alert, and it'll also make it easy for you to breathe in through the nose and out through the nose. So again, I'm going to ease us into meditation with some chanting, which you guys are more than welcome to join in on, and then I'll come back in with the guidance afterwards. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakawa Potang Mahakawanang Apiwate Sawakato Mahakawata Tammo Damang Namasami Supatipano Mahakavato Savaka Sangho Sanghang Namami Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso Mahakawa Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vicacaranang Sammuno Sakato Rokavitu Anutero Purisa Dhamma Sati Satatawa Manusrang Poto Bhagavati. Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, and the upper body erect, just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath, a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathing gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. อะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธมหะเกวาโพตังมหาเกวันหังอภิวาเตมิสวากขาโตมหาเกวตาธัมโมธัมมังนามัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนมหาเกวโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมหะเกวาอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารนังสัมมุโนสกาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาดามาสติสัตตาตาวามานุสรังพุทโธภะคะวะติ Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Once again, welcome to everyone here at the temple. Welcome to everyone online as well. Good morning. Like I was mentioning, today is the very beginning of the restart of our group learning program, where each Sunday and Wednesday I come together with students, helping them to gradually learn the path to enlightenment as taught by the Buddha. I'm going to be sharing multiple things throughout this program and throughout today's class to be able to help you to understand this path that the Buddha shared. This path to enlightenment that he shared is a path of training your mind to get to the point where the mind is enlightened. What enlightenment is where the mind's completely peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. By the time you get to enlightenment, you will no longer experience any discontent feelings. You will have eliminated all the causes and conditions that are producing things like anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. All of this can be eliminated from the mind. Oftentimes people think that it's other people who are causing you to be angry or frustrated. You might think that it's your parents that are frustrating you, or your brothers and sisters are irritating you, or maybe your boss is annoying you. This isn't actually true. It's your own mind that's actually causing these feelings, and this is why you can eliminate them. Next week on Sunday, I'm going to be sharing the very first teaching of the Buddha that's going to help you to independently verify through his teachings that your own mind is causing these feelings. Because everything in the teachings of the Buddha is based in you cultivating wisdom. There aren't any beliefs here in the teachings of the Buddha, because with belief, you don't know what's true or false. You're just believing it because maybe somebody convinced you to believe it, or you convinced yourself to believe it. So an individual on the path to enlightenment, they are not a follower or a devotee or anything like that. They are an independent practitioner that are looking to cultivate wisdom to be able to awaken the mind to this enlightened mental state. And the way that you do this is through investigation and examination of the teachings. You then reflect on those teachings to independently verify whether they're true or false. And then you practice his teachings, integrating them into your day-to-day life in order to be able to train the mind and uproot the causes and conditions that are producing these discontent feelings. So meditation is an important part of learning and growing and developing on the path to enlightenment. You would need to meditate to be able to train your mind to get to enlightenment. But it's not only meditation that you need in order to be able to get to enlightenment. There's a whole host of other teachings that you would need. Oftentimes people have the myth that the Buddha sat under a tree, he meditated and instantly got to enlightenment. This isn't actually true. It was through gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress. Everything that I share with you is based on the original words of the Buddha. The original words of the Buddha are in something called the Pali Canon. The Pali Canon is 45 volumes of books that are about this thick, that are the largest, most complete collection that we have of the teachings of the Buddha. And what I'm going to be sharing with you over the course of the next 7 months and however long you choose to study with me is the teachings of the Buddha based in his original teachings, this Pali Canon, where you can learn this in the English language nowadays. And now you don't believe those teachings. You learn them, you reflect on them to independently verify them, and you practice them. And slowly but surely, as you're training your mind, getting closer and closer to this enlightened mental state, you'll be able to see that that's what is occurring. Because you know in situations where you are angry and frustrated and agitated or annoyed, and when you're experiencing those same situations after training your mind, you'll see that your mind doesn't experience that anymore. You'll see the gradual progress to your own mind. So it's not like you're going to work for 5 or 10 years and then instantly you're going to get to enlightenment and not seeing any benefit during that period of time. Instead, you're going to be seeing gradual improvement all the way through as you're training your mind. So I have plenty of things to share with you today and throughout the rest of this program. But what I'm going to do is get us started with understanding what is a Buddha. Because if you're interested in studying the teachings of the Buddha, you would like to know what is a Buddha. So I'm going to start you out with that. But before I do, I'd like to just let you know that I'm going to be pausing a few times as I go in all of these classes that I teach. And as I pause, I'm going to open up to questions that you guys might have. Whether you're here at the temple or you're online, you can ask any and all questions that you like. If you're here at the temple and you'd like to ask questions, we have microphones in the white bowl in the middle of the room. All you need to do is come get a microphone, take that back to your seat, press the gray button. You're going to see the lights come on, and you can hold this up to your chin and we'll be able to hear you here at the temple, and they'll be able to hear you online as well. If you speak here without a microphone, they won't be able to hear you online. And then you can keep these microphones with you because you might have more than one question, or someone around you might have a question, and you can just share the microphone with them. And then if you're not using it, if you could turn it off, that way we won't get feedback through the speakers, that'd be great. And then for anybody who's online, if you guys would like to ask questions, you can put that into the comment section of Facebook, YouTube, or in Zoom, and I'll be able to see that and answer your question. Or if you're in Zoom, you have the added functionality of electronically raising your hand and unmuting your microphone, and we'll be able to hear you here. We'll be able to hear you throughout the live stream. So first, what I'm going to do is just share with you guys what is a Buddha, because this is going to help you have an introduction to the teachings of the Buddha and just understand what this individual is and what a Buddha actually is. So there's 3 main criteria of what make a Buddha a Buddha. The first one is that they get to enlightenment by themselves without the help of any teachers or any guides. They figured out how to train their mind and cultivate the needed wisdom to get to this enlightened mental state where the mind's completely peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. And there's other benefits as well that we're going to talk about with this enlightened mental state. So an individual who's an actual Buddha has figured out how to do this by themselves. The second criteria is that once they get to enlightenment, they dedicate the rest of their life to sharing their independently discovered teachings with countless people. And countless people will get to enlightenment during that person's lifetime. So from the age of 35 to the age of 80, this individual that we refer to as the Buddha, he shared his teachings, and countless people got to enlightenment during that period of time. And they knew that they were enlightened because it was 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. Their mind hadn't experienced any discontent feelings. You'll know when you actually get to enlightenment because you'll see that the progression of these training that you've done has led to this point where your mental state is completely peaceful and joyful, and it'll be 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. There's no discontentedness in the mind whatsoever. And the rest of your life, you'll experience that peace and joyful mental state. So the Buddha dedicated the rest of his life to sharing his independently discovered teachings from the age of 35 to 80. Then a Buddha is going to preserve their teachings in such a way that countless individuals will get to enlightenment after their death as well, not only during their life, but after their death as well. So these are the three main criteria of what make a Buddha a Buddha. And this type of individual is very rare in the world. You'll find some people today that will tell you that everybody is a Buddha, or that you have Buddha nature, or that you can attain Buddhahood. This isn't from the Buddha. These are misunderstandings that other people have. The Buddha described how rare it is for there to be a Buddha in the world. It's a very unique type of individual. You'll be able to get to enlightenment, but at that point you won't be considered a Buddha because you're not going to meet these three criteria of having gotten to enlightenment by yourself without the help of any teachers or any guides. You may or may not dedicate the rest of your life to sharing the teachings, and you're not going to be preserving the teachings because they're already preserved for you to be able to learn and grow and develop. So this isn't something that everybody is a Buddha. This is a misunderstanding that some people have. There's other criteria of what make a Buddha as well, is that an individual who's a Buddha has a profound and deep memory. Even in the unenlightened state, they have a deep, profound memory that an average individual has certain difficulties with understanding and kind of having memory because their mind isn't really well trained. But an individual who's an actual Buddha, even in the unenlightened state, they have a deep, profound memory. And this is actually what helps them to be able to get to enlightenment by themselves without the help of any teachers or any guides. An average human being has a limited capacity for their memory. It's kind of like a hard drive on a computer, that maybe there's a 500 gigabyte or 1 terabyte hard drive. Well, when you get to the capacity, you need to delete old files in order to store new files. That's why, like in the last 5 or 10 years, you can remember pretty much all the things that you were involved in. But if you think back to your childhood, you just have spotty memories because you've had to delete old files in order to store these new files because you have a limited capacity. But an individual who's going to become a Buddha, they have an unlimited capacity to be able to remember countless details about their current life and their past lives too. So they put together all this wisdom and accumulate it in their last life to then be able to apply that in their last life to be able to train their mind and actually get to this enlightened mental state. This is what allows them to be able to do that. Then an individual who's a Buddha has the ability to quickly determine the condition of somebody else's mind, and then they're able to offer them teachings that would be able to help them to be able to progress on the path to enlightenment and get closer to enlightenment. But they only do this with their students. They don't, peer into somebody's life and give them unsolicited guidance and tell them what they should or shouldn't be doing, but instead they use this quality to be able to observe the quality of someone else's mind and then provide them teachings that would help them to progress on the path to enlightenment. And then lastly, one of the qualities of an individual who's a Buddha is that they're a living, breathing, walking example of their teachings. Whatever it is that they teach, they also practice those same things. Because a Buddha's wise enough to understand that they're teaching through their spoken words, but they're also teaching through their actions. Their students are learning just as much through their spoken words as they are through their actions. So a Buddha is going to be a living, breathing, walking example of their teachings. If they're teaching you to be polite, kind, friendly, respectful, they're going to be polite, kind, friendly, and respectful as well in the way that they interact with others. So you'll see this as part of an individual who's an actual Buddha. So these are the criteria of what make a Buddha. And as I shared with you, it's very rare for this type of individual to exist in the world. The last one that the world is currently aware of existed over 2,500 years ago. So you're surely able to get to enlightenment, but at that point you wouldn't be considered a Buddha because you wouldn't meet all these criteria. We refer to this type of individual as a fully, perfectly enlightened one. The reason why is that by the time they get to enlightenment, in terms of what they know about the path to enlightenment, is the path to enlightenment. They know this path inside and out, backwards and forwards. And they spend the rest of their life illuminating that path, putting lights down alongside of that path so that people can see very clearly of what it takes to get to this enlightened mental state, where the individual who's maybe gotten to enlightenment with the help of teachers who aren't a Buddha, this individual is going to have maybe 5-10% of things that are still in their mind that didn't lead to their enlightenment, but they still do those particular things. They still got to enlightenment, but there are certain things that maybe they're still doing just out of respect for their teacher that didn't lead to their enlightenment. So they kind of have like a little bit of extra baggage around that an individual who's a Buddha doesn't actually have. So we refer to a Buddha as a fully, perfectly enlightened one because they know the path inside and out, backwards and forwards, and they understand that path very clearly. And then they spend their life dedicated to illuminating that path for others to be able to understand. So this is what a Buddha is. And as I share, it's very rare for this type of individual to exist in the world. So I'm going to share with you what the teachings of the Buddha are and what the teachings of the Buddha are not, so you can understand this, because there's plenty of misunderstandings in the world about his teachings. And depending on what you've been exposed to, more likely than not, those things weren't based in his original teachings. So this will kind of give you like an introduction or an overview of what the teachings of the Buddha are and what they are not. So what the teachings of the Buddha are is it's a path to attaining enlightenment in this life through purification of the mind. The Buddha discovered 10 individual pollutions that are in the mind, and he discovered the tools and the techniques of how to eliminate those out of the mind. And through training of the mind and eliminating this through purification of the mind, you'll see that the mind experiences this peace, calmness, serenity, and this contentedness with joy. It's a mental state that you can attain in this life or at death. Ideally, you would attain enlightenment during your life, because then for the rest of this life, you'll be experiencing the peace, the calmness, the serenity, the contentedness, and the joy. You'll notice that your mind doesn't experience any discontent feelings like anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. All of this is eradicated from the mind because you've uprooted the causes and conditions that are producing it through a purification of the mind, through training of the mind. You'll notice that the mind is focused. You have concentration, clarity, and deep memory. Because when you have those pollutions in the mind doesn't perform very well. But when you uproot those pollutions out of the mind will perform optimally. And that's why there's this focus, concentration, clarity, and deep memory in the mind. You'll notice that you have deep wisdom about the world that other people don't actually have, because you've cultivated wisdom about the natural laws. You'll notice that you can be polite, kind, friendly, and respectful to everybody and anybody in the world, where right now you might find that to be difficult. You might actually be impolite, unkind, unfriendly, and disrespectful in certain situations. And oftentimes the mind blames that on other people. You might think that it's other people that are causing you to be impolite, unkind, unfriendly, and disrespectful, but it's actually coming from your own mind. And you can clean that up and you can purify that, getting to the point where you're polite, kind, friendly, and respectful to all beings, and you're not causing harm to others. And because of this, you'll notice that your personal and professional relationships are really blossoming, that they're at ease, that you don't have the difficulties and struggles in your day-to-day relationships anymore. Right now, you might have a certain amount of bitterness and harshness and hostility in your relationships, but this can all be improved. This can all be changed. This isn't coming from other people. It's actually coming from your own mind, and this is why you can actually transform this. If it was other people that were causing you to be angry or frustrated or sad or any of these other discontent feelings, you would never be able to fix that, because you can't change other people to do things your way. So the Buddha didn't go out into the world and try to change other people. He instead worked on his own mind, trained his own mind, and that's what allowed him to get to the peace and joy. And you can accomplish that same thing as well. The way that this is occurring, that you're purifying the mind, is through the elimination of something called craving, anger, and ignorance. This is the way we refer to those 10 fetters or those 10 pollutions in a high-level way. We refer to them as the 10 fetters because during the lifetime of the Buddha, if you were a person that they were trying to keep confined to a certain area, they would attach a fetter to your ankle. What a fetter is a shackle and a chain and a ball. So maybe like a criminal, they would keep them confined to a certain area. There'd be like a field, and they would just keep them confined there by putting a shackle and a chain and a ball around their ankle. Where today we put criminals in jail cells or prison cells. So a fetter is something that's keeping an individual trapped and confined to a certain area. So when the Buddha discovered these 10 pollutions in the mind, or these defilements, these taints, he describes them as fetters because it's keeping the mind trapped in this unenlightened state, continuing to experience difficulties and struggles over and over and over again. But when you eradicate those out of the mind and you uproot those fetters, just like the prisoner would be free if you release the fetter off of their ankle, the same thing is true about your mind, that your mind can be free, where it's not bound up with this stress and anxiety, guilt and shame and fear and all these other discontent feelings. So the 10 fetters is the deepest level of detail that the Buddha shares on these pollutions, and I'm going to be sharing those as part of this program in future classes. But for today, I'm just going to kind of introduce you to this at a high level, and just kind of an introduction to what we call the 3 poisons, or the 3 unwholesome roots, or the 3 fires of craving, anger, and ignorance, because this is what you're purifying your mind of. What craving is the mind's longing, yearning, the chasing after the objects of your affection, the unquenchable thirst that the mind has, pulling towards the objects of its affection, thinking that the next new shiny object waiting around the corner is going to provide some lasting satisfaction. So the mind chases it and chases it and chases it and chases it. It's kind of like the mind thinks, I don't feel good here. I feel sad or uncomfortable. What can I do to feel better? And the mind's like, oh, I know what I'll do. I'll get some more money. That'll fix everything. Let me get some more money. So the mind will chase after that for a while, and it'll try to get money. And if you get the money, you'll be happy. But then if you don't get the money, you'll be angry and sad and frustrated. And then the mind might say, what can I do to feel better? Oh, how about if I get a new boyfriend or new girlfriend? That'll fix everything. Let me get one of those. So the mind will chase after that for a while. And then once again, if you get this, you'll be happy and excited about that. But then ultimately your mind will be angry and frustrated and sad again. And then the mind's like, what can I do to feel better here? I know what I'll do. I'll go to Thailand. That'll fix everything. Let me go to Thailand and this will solve everything, right? And now the mind might chase after that for a while, right? So the craving, desire, attachment is like this unquenchable thirst that the mind has, thinking that something external is going to provide some lasting satisfaction. So the mind chases it and chases it and chases it and chases it. And if it gets what it wants, it gets happy. It gets pleasant feelings like excitement, elation, thrill, exhilaration, or euphoria. But if the mind doesn't get what it wants, it gets like anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, feelings like this. And when that anger is arising, the mind firmly believes that the problem is external. The mind will firmly believe that the people around you are causing this anger in your mind. And what you'll tend to do is you'll tend to push these people away, or you'll push the situation away. This is called aversion. But you can see that that doesn't actually solve the problem, because when you push people away out of your life, you still get angry, you still get frustrated. If this person was the true problem, the cause of your problem, when you push them away out of your life, you'd be peaceful from that point forward. Or the second thing that the unenlightened mind will do when this anger is arising and it doesn't realize it's coming from its own cravings, desires, attachments, is it'll tend to be bitter and harsh and hostile with people through your intentions, your speech, and your actions. It's almost like an animal growling and roaring at another animal, trying to fear that being into doing things your way. Or the third thing that an individual will do is they'll put their expectations on someone, trying to pressure them or force them to do things their way. This is the mind trying to get its cravings, desires, attachments fulfilled. And in this situation where you're pushing people away, you're being bitter, harsh, and hostile, and you're putting your expectations on people to try to control them, you can't live with all beings harmoniously, because it's only a matter of time before people do things differently than you. Oftentimes the mind is craving permanence, wanting things to be a certain way permanently. That's what the craving, desire, attachment is. The mind is craving permanence while you live in an impermanent world. And as long as you have these cravings, these wants and expectations, this longing, yearning, and wanting everybody to be a certain way, you can't be permanently happy. You can't be permanently peaceful because it's only a matter of time before you encounter somebody who does things differently than you. Oftentimes people can only love someone or like somebody when they do things their way. And as soon as somebody doesn't do things your way, you might dislike them. And oftentimes the mind thinks that this dislike is coming from the other person, when in reality it's coming from your own mind, because there's cravings, desires, wants, and expectations that the mind wants everybody to be the same way. But we live in an impermanent world. It's not possible for everybody to be the same way. So you can learn how to love the individual, love the person, while disagreeing with the choices and decisions that they make. Because if you can only love people who do things your way, there's only one person in the world who does things your way 100% of the time. Do you know who's the one person who does things your way 100% of the time? Yourself, right? So if you can only love people who do things your way, you would only be able to love yourself. And you might even find that challenging to do sometimes, is loving yourself. So while the craving, desire, attachment, these wants and expectations exist in the mind, as long as those are there where the mind's longing, yearning, and chasing things, it's only a matter of time before you end up in the anger and the frustration, the bitterness and hostility, because you can't get things your way all the time. And where this is coming from is what we call ignorance, or some people refer to it as ignorance. I tend to not use this word because it's a derogatory word. It's a demeaning word. I would never refer to anybody as ignorant. A better way to think about this is the lack of wisdom or confusion or misunderstanding, the unknowing of true reality, that the unenlightened mind just doesn't understand what it doesn't understand. And because of this lack of wisdom, the mind continues to crave and it continues to have anger. Because oftentimes people walk around the world firmly believing that it's other people who are causing you to be angry and frustrated. That's part of the lack of wisdom, the misunderstanding, the unknowing of true reality. So while we call it craving, anger, and ignorance, it's really because of ignorance that craving and anger continues in the mind. If it wasn't for this lack of wisdom and this confusion in the mind, an individual would have already eliminated their longing, yearning, their craving, and they would have eliminated their anger. So this chasing that maybe you're using as motivation to be able to accomplish the things that you want in the world, if your mind's not chasing, then you might swing all the way to the other side where you're feeling dull and lethargic and complacent. That's not what the Buddha is teaching you. He's teaching you to come to the middle where you can gradually pursue your goals, objectives, or interests through enthusiasm and ambition and motivation, doing it through wise decisions rather than chasing things. Because when you're chasing, you'll get exhausted of chasing all those things. And sometimes those cravings, desires, attachments burn out, and you'll find that you're unmotivated to really do things in life. So this swinging back and forth that the unenlightened mind does, it's causing the mind to be unstable or unsteady. It's shaken up. The Buddha is teaching you how to come to the middle where you can gradually pursue things as a goal, objective, or interest in your life, but not form your feelings on whether you accomplish that thing or not. So this craving, anger, and ignorance is what you're purifying the mind of. You're eliminating that out of the mind so that you can come to the middle and you can gradually pursue your goals, objectives, or interests through wise decision making. So that's why the teachings of the Buddha are based in wisdom, because you need to arise wisdom to eradicate that ignorance or that unknowing of true reality. There's no belief in his teachings. You're cultivating the wisdom of how the world around you works. What he's helping you to be able to do is awaken to the natural laws of existence. He's not teaching you to believe things and then something great's going to happen for you when you die. He's teaching you how to get to a wonderful life now, to an ideal life now. So he's teaching you what's called the natural laws of existence, namely this natural law of karma. Now, some people might have heard this referred to as karma. If you've studied different things, you might have heard the word karma being used. This word karma is from the Sanskrit language, where the original teachings of the Buddha are in the Pali language. So people who use the Pali language will tend to use this word karma. Now, if this translated to just one English word, I would use that English word because it'd be easy for everybody to understand. But since it doesn't translate to just one English word, I still need to use this word karma. What this means is cause and effect, or action and result, the results of your decisions. When you make decisions wisely, you will experience wholesome karma, or wholesome results. And when you make decisions unwisely, you will experience unwholesome karma, or unwholesome results. So this isn't anything mystical or magical. It's not about punishments and rewards. It's not about who's to blame or who's at fault. There's no being who's overseeing this and controlling what people experience. It is the results of your decisions that lead to any particular result that you experience in your day-to-day life. And what the Buddha is helping you to be able to do is awaken to this natural law so that you can see the truth for yourself. Because when you don't understand the natural laws, you will struggle and have difficulties in your day-to-day life because of that lack of wisdom. Just like when we were growing up as a child and we lacked wisdom of the natural law of gravity, we struggled and had difficulties. This natural law was affecting us, whether we were aware of it or not. And because we lacked wisdom of this natural law, we fell down. We bumped our elbows, we hit our head, we broke our toys, and we cried and cried and cried because we had difficulties and struggles living in a world that we didn't understand. But slowly but surely, we might say that we awoke to the natural law of gravity, meaning we cultivated wisdom about this natural law of gravity. That's what it means to awaken to enlightenment, is that you're cultivating wisdom about the natural laws. So you might say that we are now fully awake to the natural law of gravity. Over time, we slowly but surely cultivated wisdom about this natural law, and now we make wiser decisions and we experience wholesome results because of that wisdom, that we're now making wise decisions in the way that we interact in the world. We've learned to tie our shoes a bit tighter. We learned to look at the surface of the sidewalk as we're walking, that we're not as giddy and bouncing around like a little kid anymore. We've gotten to the point where we can climb ladders, we can ride bicycles, we can get on airplanes and fly all over the world because we fully awoke to this natural law of gravity and we understand how to make wise decisions based in this natural law. Well, there's other natural laws that are affecting you, whether you're aware of it or not. And that's what the Buddha is helping you to be able to do, is to be able to learn these natural laws through examination and investigation of them. Then you reflect on them to independently verify whether they're true or false. And then you practice integrating these teachings into your day-to-day life and making decisions based in these natural laws. And that's where you'll see the wholesome results, or the wholesome karma. So the Buddha isn't teaching you to believe any of these things. He's helping you to be able to cultivate the wisdom so you can see the truth for yourself. We don't believe in the natural law of gravity. We can see the truth for ourselves, that it exists. There it is, right? Nobody's believing that there's a such thing as the natural law of gravity. We can see it for ourselves. And the same thing needs to happen with all these other natural laws. Because as long as you go around the world believing certain things, you're not operating based in truth. You're not operating based in wisdom. So you're going to tend to make unwise decisions. And when you're making those unwise decisions, it's going to produce unwholesome results in your life. Oftentimes when we're experiencing unwholesome results, we tend to blame the things that we experience on other people. This is what the mind tends to do, is that an individual think that it's good luck or bad luck, the things that they're experiencing in life, or that it's destiny or fate. Some people think that it's God or some entity called the universe of why they're experiencing the things that they're experiencing. Or they might blame it on other people for the fact of what they're experiencing in day-to-day life. But more and more, you can awaken to the wisdom of these natural laws where you can see the truth for yourself, that it's your decisions that are leading to any particular result that you experience in day-to-day life. If you're needing help to be able to see this, I encourage you to ask yourself these questions, that you can see that it's your own decisions that are leading to any particular result that you experience in life. Ask yourself, who chose the location where you're sitting right now? Who chose the clothing that you're wearing? Who chose the hairstyle that you have? Who chose whether or not you ate breakfast this morning? Who chose where you live? Who chose the job that you have or the occupation that you have? Who chose the friends that you spend time with? So we could go on and on and on, and you can see a theme here that it's you making all these decisions. And when you lack wisdom in these natural laws, you will tend to make unwise decisions, and it will produce unwholesome results for you. So the Buddha is slowly but surely, gradually helping you to be able to see this natural law very clearly, where you're not believing in it. You're not thinking of it as anything mystical or magical. You're no longer thinking that it's good luck or bad luck, that the reason why you're experiencing certain things in life, or destiny or fate, or some entity called the universe or God, or it's other people that are causing you to experience things. And this is very empowering, because as long as you think that it's any of these things that is the reason why you're experiencing what you're experiencing, then that means you're locked in, you're stuck. You can't change anything about your life, because you can't change good luck or bad luck. You can't change destiny or fate. You can't change God or some entity called the universe, and you can't change other people. But it's not really true that these are the reasons why you're experiencing what you're experiencing. It's your own decisions that are leading to this. And the empowering aspect of this is that if there's anything in your life that you don't particularly care for that is occurring, all you need to do is to cultivate wisdom, make different decisions, and you will experience different results. That's the beauty about understanding this path to enlightenment and awakening to the wisdom of these natural laws, is that if there's anything that you would rather not occur in your life, just cultivate wisdom, make different decisions, and you will experience different results. But as long as an individual is blaming what they're experiencing on all these other things, then they're continuing to make the same unwise decisions. It's kind of like if you were walking down the beach and the wind was blowing in your face and you're kicking up the sand into the air and that sand keeps blowing back in your face. Well, you could blame it on good luck or bad luck or destiny or fate or God or some entity called the universe, or you could blame this on other people, but that's not going to stop the sand from blowing back in your face. But if you understand, I'm making some unwise decisions here. I'm kicking the sand up in the air, and if I'm not interested in having that sand blow back in my face, all I need to do is stop kicking up the sand, and then I'll stop experiencing that. So there are certain things that an individual is doing in their day-to-day life in the unenlightened state that is unwise, and the mind just doesn't understand it because the mind has this confusion or lack of wisdom. And the Buddha is helping you to be able to cultivate the wisdom through learning, reflecting, and practicing to be able to see the truth for yourself. So the Buddha didn't explain the way the world should be, and that if everybody follows certain rules and commandments, that the world would become a better place. He didn't explain the way the world should be. He's explaining the way the world is. And by understanding the way the world is through these natural laws, now you can navigate the world more peacefully, and now you can make wiser and wiser decisions. So an individual is training their mind to experience complete peace and joy through acquiring wisdom of these natural laws. That's what it means to awaken the mind to enlightenment. And you're eliminating these pollutions of mind, which is ultimately moving the mind closer and closer to this enlightened mental state. The Buddha's teachings are timeless. He spoke very clear, very concise, and very precise. You don't need to interpret his words. You don't need to figure out what he was saying. He speaks very clear, very concise, and very precise. And his teachings are timeless because those natural laws that existed 2,500 years ago, they're the same natural laws that exist today. So he's describing those natural laws, and now today it's the same natural laws. And all you need to be able to do is learn and practice those to be able to see the truth for yourself. He did teach something about the cycle of rebirth, and he taught what's called the 5 realms of existence. This is something that people learn as part of their journey to enlightenment, but I oftentimes suggest people to set this aside when they first start learning on the path to enlightenment, because these things themselves are also based in wisdom. You can independently verify the cycle of rebirth and the 5 realms of existence, but it's not something that someone usually approaches when they first get started on the path to enlightenment. But it's helpful to know that he actually taught these things, and ultimately, over time, you can get to a point where you independently verify this for yourself. You would never be interested in believing in the cycle of rebirth or the 5 realms of existence. There is the ability for you to independently verify this. In our book series of 13 books, in volume 11, chapter 105, I have 17 different criteria for you to be able to independently verify the cycle of rebirth. Right now, you might be believing that you only have one life, but you don't have any evidence that you only have one life, other than the fact that right now, you might not be able to remember your past lives. But as you're training your mind and you're eradicating this pollution out of the mind, there's the potential that you might actually observe your past lives. And this is the reason why the Buddha taught this. Because if you didn't understand the true reality of the cycle of rebirth and you started having vivid memories of your past lives, you might actually think you're going crazy. So if you started having vivid memories of, say, being murdered, and those memories just kept surfacing over and over and over again in your day-to-day life, you might think that you're actually going crazy. But if you understood that those are past life memories, you can set them aside and clean it out of your mind and just let it be. Or with these 5 realms of existence of hell, the animal world, the afflicted spirits, the human realm, and the heavenly realm, there's some people that can actually see these beings, because the hell beings, the afflicted spirits, which are like ghosts, and heavenly beings, these beings are formless. They don't have physical form. And oftentimes people think of them as being in some far distant land, like the heavenly realm is far up in the sky somewhere, or the hell realm is deep down in the core of the earth. But true reality is that these beings are in the same time and space as us. Just like there's human beings sitting in this chair, if I got up and left, there could be a squirrel or a rabbit or an ant or a spider that comes and sits in this chair. We're all in the same time and space. And the same thing is true about these other beings as well. So there's some people that can actually see these formless beings. And once again, if you didn't understand that that's the way the world is, you could think that you're going crazy. Because remember, the Buddha is teaching you the way the world is, not the way the world should be. And some people can even hear communication from these beings, that because they're in the same time and space as us, some people can actually hear them. And they might think that they're going crazy because they think they're hearing voices that other people can't hear. But just like if you were at a restaurant and 2 tables over, somebody's talking a little bit loud and you can learn to ignore that, the same thing is true about these beings too, that if you hear those voices, you can actually train your mind to ignore that. So the Buddha is teaching you this for a reason, because it's true, and you might start having these different experiences as you're training your mind, but it's not something you need to learn right up front. So I suggest people set it aside. And then sometimes people think that the Buddha never taught about this being of God. Sometimes people will go as far as saying that the Buddha rejected God or denied the existence of God. This isn't true. If somebody says that, they haven't penetrated into the teachings of the Buddha deeply enough. You can see that in the teachings of the Buddha, he does teach about this being, but he doesn't make this being a center focus of his teachings, because it's not this being that decides whether or not you get to enlightenment. Instead of putting God at the center of his teachings, he put you at the center of his teachings, because it's you that needs to learn, grow, and develop on the path in order to be able to experience enlightenment. But he did teach about this being, but he doesn't teach you to worship this being. He doesn't teach you to fear this being. He doesn't teach that this being has any kind of punishments or rewards or any of these kinds of things. So oftentimes people have been taught these kinds of things, and it really affects the mind in the way that they interact in the world. So we have a chapter in this program, chapter 18, where I'm going to be helping students to understand this being. But just understand at this point that you can get to enlightenment either with a relationship with this being of God or without a relationship with this being. It's really up to each individual to decide for themselves. But if you're going to be interested to understand this being, the Buddha provides that understanding for you to understand it. But there's no interest or possibility or requirement of you to worship this being or praise this being or anything like that. It's just like a neighbor. You can have a neighbor that you live close to, and you can choose to have a relationship with that neighbor, and that's going to be really helpful for you, because when you go away on vacation or holiday, or if you need some salt, you can go talk to your neighbor and you can get some help from your neighbor. But if you didn't have a relationship with your neighbor, that would be fine too, and you'd be able to go through life just fine without having a relationship with your neighbor. And that's the same thing with this being too. You can choose to have a relationship with this being or not. It's up to you to decide that. So we'll get to that when we get deeper into the program, but I'm just kind of giving students a heads up now that the Buddha did actually teach about this being. It's just that this being isn't the focal point of his teachings, because it's not this being that decides whether you attain enlightenment or not. It's your decisions that are going to determine that. The largest, most complete collection of teachings that we have from the Buddha are in something called the Pali Canon. This is 45 volumes of books that are this thick. During the lifetime of the Buddha, everything he taught was oral. He didn't write anything down, because the technology to write things down didn't exist in that region of the world 2,500 years ago. He was born in Nepal, and he taught in northeast India. And he was born in 563 BC, and he died in 483 BCE. The technology to write things down didn't exist in that region of the world 2,500 years ago. Now, you might not see something like writing something down as technology, but 2,500 years ago, this was technology. So it didn't exist during his lifetime. But shortly after his death, the technology did exist in that region of the world. So his students started to document his teachings. And by the time you get to enlightenment, you won't ever forget the teachings that it took for you to actually get to enlightenment. Your mind is performing optimally, and you would remember those teachings thoroughly. So by the time the Buddha died, there was countless people who actually had gotten to enlightenment, and 500 of them got together and they started documenting his teachings. So that's what we study as part of the Pali Canon. And we know that this Pali Canon is the largest, most complete collection that we have of the teachings of the Buddha. But everything that he taught is not in the Pali Canon. And everything that's in the Pali Canon is not from the Buddha. Because it would be naive of us to think that a document that was originating 2,500 years ago, that it's exactly the same today as it was 2,500 years ago. So the way that you break through that change and that impermanence is to be able to see the truth for yourself and to never believe anything that you see in the Pali Canon or anything that I teach or anything that anybody else teaches. It's important not to believe these things, but instead to learn, examine, and investigate, to reflect, to independently verify, and then to practice to be able to see the truth for yourself. And that's what's going to help you to be able to awaken to the wisdom that the Buddha taught based on his original teachings. This book series that I share, these 13 books, it's a consolidation of these 45 books. And over time, the teachings of the Buddha have really been hidden. Not overtly hidden, but inadvertently hidden. Because with 45 volumes of books that are this thick, it's very costly to print out. Here in Thailand, the average person would need to spend about 3 months of their salary to be able to acquire a set of these books. So for many, many centuries, the teachings of the Buddha have been hidden, not intentionally, but inadvertently, just because of the cost in printing these out. So what our book series does is it consolidates it down into 13 books to make it more manageable and approachable. And I give it away for free. Whether you would like to download it from our website, you can get it for free. You can take it and go print it if you like. You can get printed versions here by just reimbursing us for the printing cost, or you can order it on Amazon if your country has access to Amazon. That way you have access to the original words of the Buddha, and you can see what did he teach and what he didn't teach. So this book series, I've titled it The Words of the Buddha, The Path to Enlightenment, Revealing the Hidden, because these teachings have been mostly hidden over many, many centuries. But now it's time to bring them into the world in such a way that they can really shine for people to be able to see, because these teachings absolutely lead to this enlightened mental state. I know this with 100% certainty. And you can know that too by learning, growing, and developing on this path to be able to see the truth for yourself. So that's the book series that we use. And in this particular program, we use the very first book as our guide for this. Now, one of the ways you might think about the teachings of the Buddha is to heal from what hurt you so that you never need to hurt ever again. The teachings of the Buddha are to heal from what hurt you so that you never need to hurt ever again. By the time you get to enlightenment, you will no longer experience any painful feelings. It's physically impossible for you to experience anger, sadness, frustration, grief, sorrow, despair, any of these feelings, stress and anxiety. Oftentimes people think it's the outside world or maybe even your love that is causing grief and sadness. This isn't actually true. And next week on Saturday, I'm going to share a teaching with you that you can independently verify that's going to help you to be able to see what's causing these feelings. So this teachings of the Buddha, being able to heal from what hurt you so that you never need to hurt ever again. It's to do this inner work, this inner growth, this inner development, and progress on the path to be able to get to the point where your mind's completely peaceful and joyful. So I'm going to pause here and see if you guys have any questions, either here at the temple or anybody online. If you guys would like to ask questions, remember, if you guys could use the microphones here or online, you can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom. Or in Zoom, you can raise your hand electronically and ask any questions that you like. So are there any questions here or online? Let's see, I don't see any questions anywhere. Okay. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to move to the next piece, which now that I've shared with you what the teachings of the Buddha are, I'm going to share with you what the teachings of the Buddha are not. This is one of my teaching styles, that I teach you what something is, but then I teach you what something is not, because that's actually helping you to understand what something is by understanding what something is not. The teachings of the Buddha are not a collection of beliefs, doctrine, concepts, opinions, or views that will produce a pleasant afterlife if you believe in them, and an unpleasant afterlife if you disbelieve in them and you don't believe in them. In fact, the teachings of the Buddha aren't even about an afterlife. He's not helping you to be able to get to some wonderful, glorious time after this life. He's teaching you how to get to a wonderful life now, to get to an ideal life now. That's the beauty of his teachings, is you can see the improvement to the condition of your mind in your life now in this life. Knowing that you're on the path and you're experiencing progress, you know that you're learning the truth. His teachings aren't beliefs at all. You'll never see in the teachings of the Buddha where he says, just believe me, just believe me. Instead, he does just the opposite. He says, come, examine my teachings, see for yourself. Because he knew that his teachings led to enlightenment, and he knew if you examine them close enough that you would be able to see that's the truth, that they lead to enlightenment. So he says, come and examine my teachings, right? They're not based in belief. They're also not opinions and views, right? These are truths that you can independently verify that he's teaching. Also, depending on how you think about religion, I would say that the teachings of the Buddha are not a religion. But it all comes down to how you think about a religion. If you think about religion as one person at the top telling everybody else what they should or shouldn't be doing, or you think about religion as having rites, rituals, ceremonies, and worship, or if you think about religion as having rules and commandments that everyone must follow in order to create a peaceful world, the teachings of the Buddha are not a religion, because there's not one person at the top of Buddhism telling everybody else what they should or shouldn't be doing. Also, there are no rites, rituals, ceremonies, worship, or prayer as part of the teachings of the Buddha. If you've been exposed to those kinds of things, those are gross misunderstandings of his teachings. You can actually see in his original teachings that he doesn't teach any of those kinds of things. And he also doesn't teach rules and commandments. He's teaching you about these natural laws, and he's inviting you to be able to cultivate that wisdom on your own through the guidance of a teacher. A teacher is like a tour guide pointing out for you the things that you need to learn and understand, but it's you that's doing the work to be able to do that. There's no rules here. There's no commandments. It's you making decisions about your day-to-day life and cultivating the wisdom to be able to make wiser and wiser decisions. So depending on how you've maybe seen these teachings presented in the past, you might have actually seen some of these things, but this isn't what the Buddha actually taught. Those are misunderstandings, because the vast majority of the world doesn't actually study based on the original words of the Buddha. This can be challenging to wrap your mind around, to think that people would consider what they're doing to be Buddhist, but they're not actually studying based in the original words of the Buddha. As you heard me share, those 45 volumes of books have been very costly for people to be able to access. So a lot of times people aren't studying with those. There's 500 million people in the world that consider what they're doing to be Buddhist, but very few of them actually study with the original words of the Buddha. I've visited over 200 temples in my life, and I've only ever been to one temple that shares the original words of the Buddha. And if you do the math here, that's less than 1% of the temples that are actually sharing the original words of the Buddha. And this is one of the reasons why we have so many misunderstandings about his teachings in the world. So depending on how you think about religion, I would say that the teachings of the Buddha are not a religion. The Buddha's teachings are not about punishments and rewards. Oftentimes that's the way people are taught, is that there's certain punishments and rewards that you're going to experience as a result of learning or believing in some collection of teachings. That's not the Buddha's teachings. Sometimes people are taught mystical or magical things, or superstition or auspicious things. That's not the teachings of the Buddha. He doesn't teach any of those kinds of things. In fact, he says it very clearly that his teachings do not contain any of these things. Also, his teachings aren't something to attempt to force others or convince other people to do. Sometimes people learn these kinds of things and then they go out into the world trying to convince other people to do these types of things. These teachings are for you. This inner growth, this inner development for you to be able to learn and grow and become a better and better human being. The way that these teachings get shared and spread in the world is it's kind of like a piece of chocolate cake. If you saw one of your friends eating this big, delicious piece of chocolate cake and they had a big smile on their face as they're eating that piece of chocolate cake, you'd be like, where'd you get that chocolate cake from? And they're like, oh, I got it over there. And you'd be like, oh, okay, I'm going to go get myself a piece of chocolate cake. Well, if you're becoming more and more peaceful, more and more joyful, the people around you, your friends and your family, they're going to be able to see that. And they're going to be like, where did you get that smile? Where did you get that peace and that joy? And you're like, I got it over there with those teachings from the Buddha. And that's how people get exposed to them. But you don't need to go out into the world and attempt to force or convince other people to learn and practice these teachings. This is about you learning and growing and developing, not about trying to force or convince other people to do that. Also, the teachings of the Buddha aren't these short, catchy phrases that you might see in social media. Sometimes there's these little memes that kind of circulate in the world, and you'll see like a little short, catchy phrase, and someone will put the Buddha, right? Because it kind of adds credibility to this statement. And oftentimes when you research these are statements that were made in the last 50, 100, or 200 years by somebody. And it wasn't even the Buddha that actually said these things. But people will circulate these things as part of thinking that those are the teachings of the Buddha. The teachings of the Buddha are these long discourses where you can see very clearly that he's teaching in depth. He doesn't have these short little catchy phrases like that. So if you see those kinds of things, more likely than not, those aren't the teachings of the Buddha. And then lastly, what the teachings of the Buddha are not is they're not teachings that are stuck in a cultural past that degrades or denigrates any type of person. Sometimes people think, surely this individual taught 2,500 years ago. He must have degraded and denigrated people, right? He was probably against women's rights, and he was probably, suppressing women and thinking that they're less of an individual. Or maybe people who have same gender relationships, maybe he was talking bad about those people. No, the Buddha didn't do any of those things. He didn't denigrate and degrade women or minorities or individuals who have same gender relationships. He understood that it's important to be polite, kind, friendly, and respectful to all beings. So he was teaching men to be respectful of women, and he was teaching women to be respectful of men. His teachings aren't actually even based in culture. If you were just practicing culture, you would never get to the peace and joy that is the enlightened mental state, because throughout the world, there's multiple cultures all throughout the world. And these different cultures think of the world in different ways. So if you're in one country versus another, one thing that could be considered rude in one country could be considered to be polite in another country. But when you're practicing the natural laws, you can actually practice based on these natural laws, and you can go to anywhere in the world and you can practice these natural laws, and you'll see that you'll get along just fine, and you'll have harmonious relationships in all these situations. So the teachings of the Buddha aren't stuck in a cultural past that degrades or denigrates any particular type of person. So do you guys have any questions on this at all about what the teachings of the Buddha are or what they are not? No questions? Okay, let me see it here online. All right, I don't see any questions here either. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you guys just a little summary of what we were just talking about. That what a Buddha is they are a human being who's independently figured out how to attain enlightenment without the help of any teachers or any guides. They then dedicate the rest of their life to sharing those independently discovered teachings with countless people, and countless people will get to enlightenment during that person's lifetime. Then they will preserve their teachings in such a way that countless more people will get to enlightenment after their death. These are the three primary criteria of what make a Buddha a Buddha. The path to enlightenment is a journey of growing, learning, and developing to purify the mind, essentially becoming a better and better human being. So this is a purification of the mind, of growing and developing, doing this inner work, this inner growth, this inner development. What enlightenment is it's a mental state that you attain in this life. It can also be attained at death as well, where the mind's completely peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. So this is just a little summary of what it was that I was just sharing with you guys. So just to summarize it fully, is the teachings of the Buddha are to heal from what hurts you so that you never need to hurt ever again. So if you're tired of being angry, if you're tired of being sad and frustrated, if you're tired of the stress and the anxiety and the broken relationships, the heartache and the misery, the teachings of the Buddha are for you, that it will teach you how to heal from what hurts you so that you never need to hurt ever again. But it's not the outside world that is hurting you. It's what's going on in one's own mind. So the teachings of the Buddha will help you and guide you in this journey of healing and becoming a peaceful and joyful individual. In terms of this program and what I'm going to be sharing over the coming months is that this is a live interactive program, either in person here at the temple or online. People can attend either way. And I teach this through sharing here at the temple or Zoom, Facebook, and YouTube. You can attend live if you like, but there's also recordings as well. I teach on Sundays and Wednesdays at 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. On Sundays and Wednesdays, I teach here at 9 a.m. And then at 9 p.m. on Sundays, I teach here at the temple. And then on Wednesdays at 9 p.m., I teach it from home. I have a home studio where I live stream out to people throughout the world. So no matter where you are in the world, you can be learning and growing of healing from what hurts you so that you don't ever need to hurt ever again. And if you can't attend the classes live, there's recordings for you. On Sundays, I do a talk on a chapter in this book. And as you heard, you can get this book at no cost. So each Sunday, I'm going chapter by chapter by chapter, helping students to be able to understand this. So if you're reading the chapter either before class or after class, then you can come to class and you can learn and then ask any questions that you like. And then on Wednesdays, I'm doing meditation with students and helping them learn about chanting and how to train your mind through meditation. And then I open up to whatever questions students have on Wednesdays as well. There is a group learning program, Facebook group, where we're actually the Daily Wisdom, Walking the Path with the Buddha, is a place where I'm making posts to be able to help students to learn in the Facebook group. So if you use Facebook, you might decide to join this Facebook group where you'll see me making posts regularly throughout the week and throughout the month about these teachings to be able to help you learn that way. There's a book. There's audiobook, there's video library, there's podcasts, and there's even quizzes that you can use as resources to help you on this journey. These are all available at no cost for you. And you can access them from our website, buddhadailywisdom.com. That's like a central hub where you can get access to all these resources. Then there's ongoing support. You can ask questions in these live programs like this where I'm actually teaching. You can post in the Facebook group if you like. You can send me a private message, or you can schedule personal guidance, either in person or online, because it's one thing to learn in class, but it's a whole nother thing to relate it to your individual situations that you might have. So students will oftentimes need a certain amount of personal guidance, and there's no limit to the amount of time that you can do that. You can schedule personal guidance either in person or online, and I will sit down with you and meet with you, listen to what it is that you're struggling with in your day-to-day life, and then I will help you understand how to apply the teachings of the Buddha in that situation to be able to help you. I won't tell you what you should or shouldn't be doing. It's up to you to make decisions for yourself of what you would like to do in your life, but I'm going to help you to be able to see the teachings of the Buddha, and then you decide for yourself of how you would like to maybe make a certain decision. So one of the ways someone might think about a Buddhist teacher is, yes, like a tour guide, pointing out for you the things that you need to learn and understand, but also sometimes people think of a Buddhist teacher like a life coach or a mentor or something of that nature. You can think of me however you like. It's up to you, but just know that I'm here to help you. I have nothing but loving kindness and compassion for you. I have ambition and enthusiasm and motivation to see as many people get to enlightenment as possible, because getting to enlightenment is the very best thing that you could ever do for yourself, for those around you, and for all of humanity. Because as you're becoming a more peaceful, loving, kind, gentler individual, you're going to experience the benefits of that for yourself. The people around you are going to experience the benefits of that. And the world at large is going to become a kinder, gentler, more loving place to exist. So if you need personal guidance, you're more than welcome to reach out for that, and I will help you. The reason why someone might be interested in taking this program is because they're interested in getting to this peaceful, calm, serene, and content mind with joy, where the mind is actually enlightened, where they're interested in eliminating all those discontent feelings like sadness, anger, frustration, and others. That by the time you get to enlightenment, you'll be experiencing a peaceful life where things are at ease. That right now you might be having difficulties and struggles in life. By the time you get to enlightenment, you won't have difficulties and struggles. You'll have certain challenges that you're facing, but you'll be able to make wise decisions to be able to overcome those challenges. But in the unenlightened state, with a lack of wisdom in these natural laws, life can sometimes feel very miserable, very difficult, and much of a struggle. But you can overcome that through the cultivation of wisdom. Another reason why someone might take this program is they're interested in improving their personal professional relationships. Maybe you've experienced broken relationship after broken relationship after broken relationship, and you'd like to build harmonious relationships in your life. This program is going to help you to be able to understand how to do that through focusing on training your mind. Not through changing other people, but through training your own mind. You'll be able to improve the relationships that you have. You'll notice that you'll have an increased focus, concentration, clarity, and deep memory, because as you're training your mind in this program, you're eradicating those pollutions of mind, and you'll see the mind perform more optimally. And then, of course, some people focus on the elimination of the cycle of rebirth, that you're not continuing to come back over and over and over again, experiencing the difficulties and struggles that one experiences in their day-to-day life. The way that you integrate these teachings into your life is gradually, slowly but surely. You like to be attending in-person classes or online each week. And that's why this program is scheduled each week, Sunday and Wednesday. So you can gradually trickle the teachings into your day-to-day life. Because if you try to take on too much of the teachings at one time, it can be overbearing for the mind. So you like to just kind of trickle the teachings into the mind little by little by little. But also there's in-depth learning opportunities for you to be able to learn, like in courses and retreats and things like that. In fact, tomorrow I'm going to be starting a Foundation in the Path to Enlightenment course, where Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m., I'm going to be taking a really deep dive for students to be able to learn the foundational teachings. Essentially, that 5 days is about the first 2 months of the group learning program. So for anybody who's here in Chiang Mai or anybody online that would like to attend that, because I live stream it as well, that you can attend the course next week, which is titled The Foundation in the Path to Enlightenment. So there's in-depth learning opportunities all throughout the year that you can take. And there's many courses and retreats that I share. You would like to also be reading this first book, Developing a Life Practice, The Path That Leads to Enlightenment, just like 10, 15, 20 minutes a day. It's kind of like eating food, that if you took a really big bite of food, it would be hard to chew it and digest it. But if you just take little tiny bites, it's actually easier to chew on it and digest it, because you're not just trying to rush through this and get to the end of the book. You're trying to gradually learn the teachings and at the same time be independently verifying them. So if you're reading just 10, 15, 20 minutes a day, this will really help the mind to be able to understand the teachings and integrate them into your day-to-day life. Then you're going to need to build a practice of generosity where you're giving and sharing with the people around you. This is going to help you to train your mind to let go, where you can give and share with people without any expectation of anything in return. Oftentimes, the unenlightened mind is very selfish. The mind thinks, if I spend 3 hours doing this, I want this in return. Or if I spend 3 days doing this, I want this in return. And you're going to need to do that to a certain degree with your boss and your employment, because you need to sustain your life and get the basic necessities to sustain life. But as you're acquiring resources in your life, you would like to be able to share with the people around you. Otherwise, you're going to be holding on to things very tightly. So we're going to talk in more detail about what generosity is doing for the mind, but essentially it's enhancing the quality of your mind to be willing to give and share with the people around you. Then you're going to need to improve your moral conduct. Bro, right now, you might be practicing in certain ways where you're being bitter and harsh and hostile to people. And as long as you're putting that out, that's all going to be coming back to you. So what the Buddha teaches you is how to improve the way that you interact with people, where you're no longer being bitter and harsh and hostile. And when you shut all that down, then you'll see that people will be more loving and kind with you. It's kind of like if you had an oil pipe and it had busted and it's spewing oil all over the world. You're not going to go clean up the mess on the floor first. You're going to shut down the oil pipe so it's no longer spewing oil all over the world. Well, right now, there's probably a certain amount of moral conduct that you're doing that is unwise. And as long as you keep spewing that into the world, you're causing harm to others, and this harm is going to come back to you. So there's a certain amount of improvement that an individual makes to their moral conduct and the way that they interact with others. And this is going to help you to experience more and more peace, more and more joy in your day-to-day life. And then you're going to need to develop a meditation practice, which I'm going to help you do through each one of these Sunday classes when we're meditating. And then on Wednesdays as well, I'm going to be teaching meditation so that you can learn and grow and develop this meditation practice where you can ultimately get up to the point where you're meditating 2 or 3 times a day for 30 minutes. Now, this can sound like a lot for some people. It can take you 6 months, a year, even 2 years to build up to this type of frequency and duration. But there's probably some unbeneficial things that you're doing in life right now that you could actually start to peel away. Maybe bring down your social media from maybe 3 or 4 hours a day down to maybe like 30 minutes or an hour. Or maybe if you're just endlessly watching YouTube videos, you could bring that down some, and you'll see that you actually have time to dedicate to something like this where you can train your mind and experience more and more improvement in your day-to-day life. So oftentimes it can take someone 6 months, a year, even 2 years to build up to this type of frequency and duration with their meditation. But keep in mind, you're not in a race with anybody. You're not in a competition with anybody. This is your own independent journey to enlightenment. So you can grow and develop on this path. And then as you need, you can seek guidance from me, either in these live classes, you can post on our Facebook group, you can send a private message, or you can schedule personal guidance and I'll help you. So this is the book that you would like to acquire. You can download it from our website. You can take it and go print it. You can get printed versions here by reimbursing us for the printing cost, or you can order it on Amazon. And this is what's going to gradually help you to be able to learn these teachings throughout the program. So this is the first book of our book series. So as I mentioned, there's this program, 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. each Sunday and Wednesday. It's an independent study. It's an independent journey where you're learning and growing and developing. Maybe attending classes live sometimes, but maybe watching the recordings other times through our YouTube channel or through our Facebook page, our Facebook group. Or we also have a podcast where you can listen to the classes on the podcast as well. So you can digest the content in any of those ways. But as I shared, you need to independently verify what it is that I'm teaching, what it is that the Buddha shared. You can't believe anything that I'm sharing. And I'm going to show you how to do that next week when I help you to be able to start with the very first teaching of the Buddha. And you're going to need to develop this meditation practice. I'm going to be teaching you breathing mindfulness meditation and loving kindness meditation. And where possible, it would be helpful for you to set aside anything that you've previously learned, because those things can actually get in the way of you being able to learn what it is that you need in order to be able to progress on this path to enlightenment. So just to kind of talk about this and kind of finish off, and then I'll open up to questions one more time before I end class. It's important to understand that no one has ever accomplished anything great and magnificent in the world through complacency. Oftentimes, the unenlightened mind is complacent. It's dull. It's lethargic. Some people might even say lazy. Well, if you allow your mind to continue to do that, you're never going to be able to cultivate the needed wisdom to improve your life. So you really need to step forward with dedication, determination, and diligence to grow and develop on the path, that you will get out of this program whatever you put into it. If you're reading during the week, if you're attending classes, if you're asking questions, if you're doing meditations during the classes, but also outside of classes, you're going to see progress. I've seen some students that in short as 2 days have seen progress to their practice. I've taught courses before that are a 5-day course, and a student will come in on the 3rd morning and tell me that they got an email this morning that normally would have shaken them up and they would have felt guilty and shameful, that when they read that email, they understood, and they were completely at ease and they were completely peaceful. That doesn't mean that's what you're going to experience, but it's possible to see improvement in as short as 2 days. But you're going to need to put in the dedication and the effort to be able to learn and grow and develop on this path. So if you're interested in accomplishing wonderful things in your life, you're going to need to make the decisions to move your life forward. And part of that needs to be to cultivate the wisdom to grow and develop. Because oftentimes we grow up learning how to clean this body. Our parents have taught us that we clean this body. And we got to the point that we actually enjoy having a fresh and clean body. But if you went a week or a month or a year without cleaning this body, you would feel pretty uncomfortable. Well, there's this other part to this being who you are. It's not just the physical body. There's the mind as well. And if you haven't learned how to clean up your mind, and you're walking around for 1 week, 1 month, 1 year, or longer without cleaning up the mind, this is why you feel uncomfortable and stress and anxiety in certain situations, because the mind hasn't been cleaned up, just like if you didn't clean the body. So these teachings are to teach you how to clean the mind, because oftentimes we don't learn this growing up from our parents because maybe they didn't have that wisdom. So by you learning and growing and developing on this path, you can learn how to clean the mind. So the plan for the future is that the next few Sundays, this is our plan, that today I'm just kind of doing a welcome and an introduction to the group learning program. But on the second, third, and fourth Sunday, I'm going to do a deep dive into the core central teaching of the Buddha. It's called the Eightfold Path. We're going to take our time to walk through this with the original teachings of the Buddha, so that by the end of the fourth class, you will actually have seen the path to enlightenment and what the Buddha is teaching from a high level, but also to a level of depth. Then on the fifth Sunday, I'm going to be teaching the 10 fetters, those 10 pollutions that are in the mind, so you can understand what the Buddha discovered there. And then on the sixth Sunday, I'm going to start with chapter 1, and I'm going to go chapter by chapter by chapter in the book. So if you'd like to get the book now and start reading it, you can read the preface, which is the introduction, and then you can even start slowly reading the rest of the book if you like, but I'm not going to start teaching chapter 1 until the 6th week. And then on Wednesdays, I'm going to be doing a deep dive on meditation. The first 4 Wednesdays, I'm going to be teaching the ins and outs of meditation for breathing mindfulness meditation. And then on the 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th Sundays, I'm going to be teaching loving kindness meditation. These meditations have different goals and different objectives, and I'm going to teach you what those are and how these meditations are helping you and benefiting you in your day-to-day life. And as I shared, you can learn here at the temple or you can learn online. And then after those first 8 weeks with meditation on Wednesdays, then I'm going to just be rotating between breathing mindfulness meditation and loving kindness meditation each Wednesday. So that's our plan for this program. Do you guys have any questions, anything you'd like to ask about the teachings of the Buddha or this program or anything else? Okay, we have a question coming in here on Zoom. One moment here. Let's see. This is from an individual in Zoom. Can you provide the name of the temple where you found the original teachings of the Buddha? So there's a temple in Bangkok called Wat Tung. They teach in Thai, so you would need to learn the Thai language, and that's what they teach in is Thai. But that's the only place that I've ever been to that actually shares the original teachings of the Buddha. And as I mentioned, they do it in Thai, so an individual would need to actually know the Thai language in order to be able to study there. We have something here from Bruce in Facebook. He says, my spiritual journey has been made so much better thanks to Teacher David's thorough explanation and instruction revolving around mindfulness of breathing meditation. You're welcome, Bruce. Pleased to help you there. And Chrissy, I see you also in Zoom. You're welcome. Pleased to help you. Okay. So I don't see any questions anywhere. So what I'm going to do is just end class here by thanking all of you guys for joining. I appreciate your interest to learn and grow and develop on the path to enlightenment. If you guys would like to learn more, there's plenty of opportunities like you heard me talking about this program here. Also this evening at 6:30 in our main hall of the temple, we have a meditation where I get together with students and guide you in a meditation. And then I essentially open up to any and all questions that you might have. So if you're interested in coming to that, you're more than welcome. And I usually even give a little bit of a taste of the teachings of the Buddha there as well. And then 9 p.m. tonight, I'm going to be teaching the same class here because I live stream and not everybody is awake right now, right? There's people in Europe that are sleeping. So I live stream it at 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. and then I teach it here as well so that multiple people can join for the classes. And then this week, Monday through Friday, I have the Foundation and the Path to Enlightenment course from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. On Fridays, we have our social event. Each Friday at 6 p.m., we have either game night or movie night where students come together. We have snacks and conversation. We have music playing. It's kind of like a little party here at the temple. So if you're interested in hanging out with some people that are into wholesome things on Friday night at 6 p.m., that's what we do here at the temple. And you'll see these opportunities and others on our bulletin board over there. You can see all the different opportunities we have to come together with our community. And you can also find this on our website too. If you'd like to check out our website, Buddha Daily Wisdom has those things as well. So whatever you choose to do today, have a very wonderful and lovely rest of your day. Perhaps we'll see you guys in the future. Take care and be well. Sawadee krap. Sawadee krap.
Thank you again for watching. Enjoy your meditation. Look forward to seeing you online and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.